Hello and welcome to Six Train Therapy. I'm your host, DJ Mayday, your creative.
And I'm Professor S., your psychotherapist, private practice in New York.
Yes, yes.
But wait a minute, aren't there more titles to you?
There's tons of titles,
The
but I got a
creative,
little.
you're the producer.
I know, but I got a little tired.
You're the content creator,
DJ, don't forget the DJ.
the DJ,
And artist.
and artist.
Graphic
You're the
designer.
content creator, the DJ resonator,
But yeah,
the
I'm all that and then
Gatorade,
some.
the Gatorade maker.
I don't know about that.
All right.
Anyway, so today we're going to talk about something that I think affects everyone: anxiety.
Yes.
Anxiety.
You were feeling anxiety before we started, right?
Yeah, I felt anxiety because
What was that about? Explain to the 10 visitors that we have to our channel.
Okay, well, hello, 10 visitors. Always welcome. Bring your friends.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Subscribe, like, and comment.
Please do. And tell a friend.
And tell a friend. And I was feeling anxiety because the last two episodes came out pretty good. And just in the way we kind of talked, conversated, the editing, everything went smooth. And I was like, oh, wow.
Conversated.
That's not a word?
That ain't a word, bro. Is that from the Urban Dictionary?
It might be. I don't know.
Black Twitter word.
But the way we had our conversation and the way we made our points, it was very smooth. Transition was back and forth. It was great.
We're getting better. We're getting tighter as we grow. So hopefully this will be an inspiration for those of you that are watching. Just plod along. It's okay. You make errors. You fall on your face. Just get back up. That's what we did, right?
That's what we do.
Are we
Fall on the face all the time.
we may fall on our face in the show.
Well,
Okay.
well,
I may.
I think
I might.
drinking this, we might.
That's
fall on our
right.
face.
That's right.
But
This is really lemonade, by the way, everybody.
Yeah. So I had a little anxiety because everything had come out so good. So I was like, oh, now we have a little bit of a bar to shoot for, and I actually felt a little like, oh my God, what do I have to do something different? Do I have to kind of prepare a little differently? I was giving myself anxiety, so that was interesting. And we're talking about anxiety today,
And especially since, I think the last one was on the death of the Queen.
right?
So it was very topical for the time that we're in of this broadcast. She passed away recently. And the other one was what?
Attraction,
Attraction.
which you haven't seen yet, but it's coming.
Right, it's coming.
But anyway, so
You were feeling anxiety.
I was feeling
because we were
anxiety,
doing better.
right? And then you saw me pace around. You're like, "You all right?" And I'm like, oh,
I didn't
wow.
see you pace around. I just saw you huffing and puffing.
Right, whatever.
Don't add stuff for the viewers.
Well, whatever.
Adding drama.
I'm just saying.
Dramatical. No.
Well, huffing and puffing.
Okay.
That's dramatic enough in itself.
Right. Okay.
So huffing and puffing, and you asked, and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling a little. I don't want to mess this up.
And I said, perfect. Good. Talk about it.
Right, anxiety.
Free yourself, bro. Free yourself.
Yeah, and I think it worked a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes.
Okay.
Little exercises, I guess. But I want to throw out some before we really get into the meat and potatoes of anxiety. I just want to throw out some statistics so we can kind of have a framework of what we're really dealing with. So I have a statistic on the United States. Anxiety is the most common mental disorder in the U.S., affecting. Sorry, hold on a second.
Aren't you supposed to go over this first
Yeah.
before the show?
Affecting 40 million adults in 2020. Okay. Anxiety by sex. Anxiety disorders are more common in females than in males. Anxiety affects 23% of female adults and 14% of male adults. So that's an interesting statistic. That
Well, I have an issue with that. I mean, they may be true, but men tend to underreport what they are feeling. So I'm assuming that the researchers have these different checks and balances where they can kind of make sure that their findings are valid. But men in general, we usually don't
report.
it. So women are more likely to, because women are more in touch with their feelings and not as fearful. And it's a gender thing, not trying to be sexist or anything, but men tend to hold back.
Well, I mean, it's still a pretty large swing.
Yes.
It's almost a 10% swing. So,
Yes.
but and then here's another statistic. The following.
Here we go.
Hey,
This
statistic is by
the stuff
age.
before.
I did. It's just I got to pop.
Put on
open
cards, like I have cards. Old school.
Old school. Nearly 1/3 of adolescents.
Actually, you know what? I shaved the gray out of my hair, so now I don't look old school. I look, in my
Middle school.
Exactly. That's the look I was going for. Anyway, please go on.
Nearly one third of adolescents ages 13 to 18 had an anxiety disorder
Hmm.
between 2001 and 2004. Of these adolescents, the 17 to 18-year-old age group was the most
Hmm.
affected.
Hmm.
So that again is interesting, you know. Uh,
And that makes sense. I mean, those are teenage years. Your testosterone, body's changing, and you're competing with your peers.
and this was just another. This is part of the age thing. This is
Hmm.
way at the bottom. 60-year-olds and older were the least affected age group as of 2017. So that's interesting too.
Well, I'm in that age group, so that means we're half dead. No wonder we score low.
I'm just
We don't know what the heck is going
I'm
on.
just saying 60
Things are happening. You know what I'm saying to your cognition.
Well, I don't know if it's cognition. Wouldn't you think that that would
I am
make more anxiety?
joking. I
Oh,
am joking.
I'm sorry, I can't tell.
No,
I'm sorry, I take you
I
seriously.
know. I know.
So that's basically the framework. So there is a difference between men and women,
Yeah.
age, and 40% in the United States.
Hmm.
That's a big chunk of people.
And in all seriousness, and I'm being serious right now. With COVID, with monkeypox, with all these viruses that are happening. Anxiety is part of our lives right now. And
Seriously.
we're filming from New York, and we're going through an increase in crime, especially in our subways. So it creates anxiety in places where you normally would not feel anxious.
Hmm.
You know.
Hmm. Yeah, I always, when people say anxiety, I always anxiety. What's anxiety? Or what you felt nervous at a party, or I never because I don't particularly suffer from like a strong anxiety. I've
Hmm.
obviously had anxiety before in my life, but
Mm.
I've never been crippled by the anxiety, so it's a
Mm.
little harder for me to kind of put myself in that position. But
Mm.
doing this research, I learned a lot, and I have people close to me who suffer from like more severe anxiety.
Mm.
So watching it from from my perspective, watching someone go
Mm.
through anxiety, I've had to do the research and kind of figure out like how can I help them, how can I be there for them,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's not just words that I can make it go away. I can't just convince them that the anxiety's gone.
Right, and sometimes when we see someone being anxious, the words we might use may either make them more anxious or feel like you're not being empathetic.
Right.
You think they're being weak, or they shake it off, or it's no big deal.
Stiff upper
But
lip and
when
all that.
exactly, but if somebody says they feel anxious or they have some of the symptoms, and I'll go over that a little later, the symptoms of anxiety and different kinds of anxiety, pay attention. It can also be a call for help or something's going on in their lives that they're not really sharing with you, but this is how it's presenting.
Right.
Hmm.
And I I also wanted to kind of like understand what anxiety is, like what exactly are they feeling, and I don't know if you want to go first about that on that aspect of it.
Um, yeah, why not? Just to make it very simple, right? The difference between anxiety and depression, very general, that anxiety is usually the fear of something in the future. Depression is usually sadness related to something in the past.
Mm,
So anxiety tends to be things that we think are going to happen. It might be based on things that have actually happened.
right.
It might be based on just it's about to happen, or things look like same conditions are happening, that's what then therefore something is going to happen. So that's just like a general idea of what anxiety is. But I'm going to go through some really specific types of anxiety and some of those conditions you might have heard about. But then I'm going to kind of give you the mental health specific diagnosis and what it is and what it looks like. So I'm going to share with you guys about 6 different forms of anxiety, and this information came from the New York Department of Health and Human Services, and actually it's Department of Health and Human Services. I don't know if it's national or the city, but it's hhs.gov. So look it up. Anyway, so one of the types of anxieties is called social phobias. So you might have heard the term social anxiety. So social anxiety is an excessive sense of self consciousness every day in social situations. So, like speaking in front of crowds, whether it's formal or informal, if you're eating or drinking in front of someone, being very self conscious about just you doing that. And then another would be just a general, like anytime, almost anytime they're around other people, just feeling very uncomfortable and very, very self conscious.
Is that like maybe like the more people you're around, or is it just not specific?
For some people, it's just being around people, right?
Because I've been
And
around
then you
people who are
have
scared to go into stadiums or big parties.
right. So there's, situational anxiety, right?
Right.
So depending on the environment, you might be more comfortable in large crowds, you might be more comfortable in smaller crowds. So there's different variations of social anxiety. So for example, with me at a party, I really prefer like a small group.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a small party, I'm like, great. But if it's a large party, I'm probably more likely to be like a wallflower more
Really?
type, even though I'm far from being a wallflower. Okay, I don't know what he's doing. It looks like a
Waving my
tick.
towel around
No,
at the
it looks
party.
like a tick. It looks like pre-seizure behavior. And I'm a mental health professional. I should know.
Okay, all right, all right, all right.
So, should I go on to another one, or do you want
Please,
to bring up
please.
something? So the next one, some of you may have heard of PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was discovered after World War II, where people were coming back from the war, and they called it being shell shocked, right? So when they would come back from the war, they'd have nervous reactions to like loud noises. They feel like they're on the battlefield, even though they're back home, and so that's where it began to be developed. And of course, with Vietnam, the Iraq War, those experiences can cause someone to experience PTSD. So they feel like they're in danger, even when they're not. So PTSD is when you develop is something that you develop after exposure to a terrifying event or ordeal in which grave physical harm occurred or was threatened. Right. So like if you know or you see somebody getting pushed to the subway,
Mm-hmm.
even though it didn't happen to you, when you go down to the subway again, you may feel threatened to be in that environment.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I think there's a word. It's like vigilance.
Hypervigilance. Yes,
It's when you like you're always ready for a fight or to run. It's
that's
like
right.
that. I think that's a big part of anxiety. It's one of the. It's really why we even have anxiety, right? It's a self defense
Yeah,
mechanism
it's a
that
human developmental feature
right
to
almost
keep
an
you safe.
right almost an animalistic. So
Yes.
you may perceive um, danger when you're
Hmm.
in social um, environments where there are a lot of people. For whatever reason, that's how your brain perceives threats.
Hmm.
Then it tells your body that
To mobilize.
right to mobilize. Then it sends messages to your brain to
Hmm.
react as if you're in fight or flight. So
Hmm.
that's like a lot of where the mechanics of anxiety is. And I think the word is called interception, where it's
Oh,
tells your brain whether you're safe or not.
okay.
So it's your body. It's a double reaction. It's every system working together. It's where what you see is what your brain is doing,
Hmm.
and then your body tells your brain again it's in danger. It's interception. An example of interoception, right? Am I saying that right?
Hey, this is your turn.
Interoception. It for an example of that without it being associated with anxiety is like um, hunger, right?
Hmm.
Your stomach gets hungry, your body's telling your mind it's time to eat. So
Hmm.
your body does it goes back and forth, you know what I mean? So that was something in doing the research I was like, damn.
Hmm.
Like it's not just your thoughts. It's your body reacting to those thoughts and retelling your brain, make yourself safe, be safe. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
And then your body releasing chemicals
Right.
to give you strength and to give you the ability to flee.
Right.
So cortisol is one of those chemicals in the brain that is released that allows us to escape. The problem is when you're constantly being flooded with cortisol because you feel you're constantly in
Right.
danger, then that's not good for your body because cortisol is supposed to be there for you to escape and then dissipates from your body because the danger is over. But when cortisol stays in your body, it actually damages your organs. So that's why it's really important to stay, calm, relax, to do things to de-stress yourself because your body is trying to take care of itself, but it can overwork itself.
And part of that interception reaction is to it's the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that's connected from your brain to
Mm.
your heart, to your lungs, to your stomach as well. So once that fight or flight goes off, it sends messages for your heart to beat
Mm.
faster because you
Mm.
might have to run and fight. You know what I mean? It kicks the body into motion. So those are all the physical effects of anxiety, right? So your
Mm.
your legs may go numb. We've heard of people, where they're shaking. This is
Mm.
all physical reactions to anxiety.
Mm.
But there's a cause and effect, right? So it's your interpretation,
Of what's happening around you,
right? Your
right?
body's reaction to that interpretation,
Yes.
resending signals to the brain to fight or flight.
Boy, you did some research,
I
bro.
tried, man. I tried because I'm like, I gotta sound
You
smart.
gotta sound smart. You gotta be smart in these streets. So, can I go on with
Absolutely, sir,
PTSD?
sir.
So some things that can cause post-traumatic stress disorder are things like physical assault, where it happened to you or you see it happening. Which the term for that is vicarious trauma. So vicarious trauma is when somebody could talk about an assault or talk about a natural disaster, and then you have an anxious response just hearing about
I
the
feel like I
the
have that
problem.
response every time I watch the news.
Absolutely. That crazy level of anxiety may not be post traumatic stress syndrome, but it does create anxiety. And that's why it's important to monitor how much news do you watch because you're actually getting stimulated and not really realizing that you are. Natural disasters that can also cause PTSD, violent personal assaults. So things that happen necessarily to you or things of that nature, natural or human disasters. That made me think of 9/11, right? I mean, that
Mm,
was if any of you were around at that time, we saw New York being attacked and people dying and buildings falling that you never thought they would ever fall. And it was a time of New York actually experiencing some form of PTSD.
yeah, I mean,
You
I
know?
remember a long time after that, getting on the train, everybody was a terrorist. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was a building. You were in a building. Everything changed. Building codes changed. The fire department had a whole
Mm-hmm.
escape strategy. They had to come in and like walk us through these techniques of getting out of tall buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely left its mark. I mean, that definitely left its mark. It's
Mm-hmm.
not until recently, really, until COVID, that I shook
Yes,
9/11 off.
that's true. It's funny that you said it. I agree with that. So, yeah. So that's another example. Accidents. Somebody. You step into the street, car hits you. It might make it very. Once if you recover, it might be hard for you to step into the street or even drive a car. If you were in the car, it make you nervous to drive. I have one client that he's actually recovering from driving in his car. He didn't have an accident. The anxiety just actually spontaneously. He woke up one day and just felt very anxious in the car. So there was no actual event that occurred. So it can happen that way.
Hmm.
It could just like show up in your body.
Hmm.
Military combat, like I said, we have various times when we're at war, and sometimes our family members, if they're out there, when they come back, a lot of times they need some form of counseling just to make the transition back. But also, if you have a loved one or someone that that went away to war, that you can feel very anxious about their safety.
I mean, my father was in Vietnam, and
Hmm.
things didn't go so hot for us as a family with him. But I always wondered, did that have something to do with it? I mean, I'll never know. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter at this point. But I mean, I could only imagine now that we you know have so much information
Hmm.
about what
Hmm.
it's like when they come back. And all the emotional turmoil, and
So there's that possibility
there's that
that could have
possibility
an
that he
effect.
was messed up on that.
Hmm. Hmm. So that's PTSD. Another one is a panic disorder.
Mm.
Most of us use the word panic, right? But in terms of a diagnosis, there are specific, I can say, factors or markers where someone of like myself would then diagnose somebody with a panic disorder. So a panic disorder is usually from an unexpected or repeated episodes of intense fear accompanied by physical symptoms. So, for example, let's say you see a spider. You see a spider, and actually, there's a specific one called arachnophobia. That's the fear of, that's a phobia, but it's part of the panic or anxiety disorders, actually. It's an anxiety disorder. But think of panic and think of having a reaction where your body actually, for example, having chest pains. That could be a sign of panic, heart palpitation, shortness of breath, dizziness, abdominal distress, your stomach kind of tightening up and things of that nature. And it's in response to something around you. It's calling you.
Numbness on the legs. I read that a couple of times.
Flush in the face, feeling very hot in your face. Sometimes your palm is sweating, and so, and it could be due to something you're actually seeing, but it could also be something that you think is going to harm you.
Right. And your body reacting.
And the body reacting. So, yeah.
No, please continue.
So a lot of times, in general, we use the term, oh, well, I'm OCD or she's OCD. And we think it's about a person being very orderly or they can't put a fork out of place. Well, in part, that is actually true. However, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, are unwanted thoughts. That's the obsession. And repetitive behaviors. That's the compulsion. Compulsion means I have to do something. I have almost like if you have to go to the gym, but I have to work out. It almost becomes compulsive to the point it may actually harm your body. Do you know what I mean? So again, unwanted thoughts is the obsession. The behaviors is the compulsion. So for example, somebody who has to wash their hands all the time. Sometimes it's people that have to count before they can go to the next thing they have to do. Right? They may want to count on their hands, or they see something on the wall, little cracks. They got to count those cracks, and then they feel they can go on.
I was questioning myself, as I was doing the research. It's because I'm the guy who has to go back and double check my lock, make sure it's locked, and then if I get out the door, I'm like, shit, did I leave the oven on? Fuck, I might have to go back. Then I'll get back outside, and I'm like, shit. Did my wife turn off the iron? And then I'll have to go back. I don't know if that's OCD or I don't trust anybody, or
well,
that's anxiety.
the thing is it's not necessarily OCD, because when you have to wash your hands and check, or you have to clean all the time, it affects how you're functioning. So, for example, I had a client who had to check the locks and the oven, so you might be. So
that's what I'm saying.
But
I have some of those symptoms.
You may have some of the but to be OCD, this particular client, he couldn't get to appointments on time. That's the difference.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've missed buses off that shit. I've walked halfway to the bus, and I'm like, fuck.
Okay.
I can't leave I don't remember locking the door, and I have to kind of run back and go check, and it's locked.
Okay. Yeah, and you can do that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're obsessive compulsive, but there are features. We could all identify, I think, with some of these conditions or symptoms that I'm reading off, right? You can you can always feel some of this. We're in social situations and we feel anxious.
Right. Doesn't everybody get a little kind of anxious when they walk into a party? They're like, where's my spot?
Not necessarily.
You know what I mean?
Some people they're just comfortable in those environments. I have several family members. Well, I wouldn't know, but I have certain family members that I feel very comfortable in gatherings. I mean, they could be playing it off, but people experience things in various degrees. So, right. But the thing is about these behaviors, right? These are rituals. So the idea of these rituals is to make you feel calmer, right? So when you came and checked the this and checked the that, you felt more at ease afterwards, right?
Right. But now I was late for work. So.
Right. But the thing is,
so I had another problem.
But that's the other part. But that's the other part to it.
Right.
I have to do these things to feel better. But here's the twist: you'll feel better temporarily, but then as you go on, then the thinking will come back again. So you're actually more anxious than before. But the idea is that for you did those things, but okay, you might be late. But are you always late?
No, not really.
Lies. lies and fallacies, clearly.
Yeah, but
However,
it's an
I
self-induced late because I'll go into the city and then
and
I
get your coffee,
yes,
get
and I'll
your
say
butter
that it's like
roll,
these motherfuckers don't deserve
get your
all
boost,
my time. Let me
get your
just
bustelo.
wa-
Yes, bro.
wow, wow.
Yes.
So go on.
Hey, that's my line. Go on, please. Go on.
Go on.
So that's the other difference too, right? So when we go back and check a lock, usually we feel, okay, the apartment is locked. Great. Did I check this stove? Okay, let me go back, right? But it doesn't necessarily disable your life.
No,
That's the difference with obsessive
right,
compulsive, right?
right. Like for instance, I have, and this is the thing too. I think based on what I read in the beginning about how the percentage of it affects at certain ages.
Mm-hmm.
And, definitely the younger ages seem like they're getting the brunt of it. But could it be just of it's part of growing up? Can we discount it at all?
Well, I think part of it is, we're actually in a different time, especially for young people, when you look at the internet and the
Social
way
media.
in
Oh my
social media,
god.
the way folks can bully you or set certain standards. Why am I not looking like this? Which can cause you to feel like you're comparing yourself to other people, which can
Right.
make you feel anxious in situations where those of us that might be older or have a different orientation to social media would not have those experiences.
For sure.
So,
Like
do you know what
I
I
have
mean?
two teenage kids, and watching them like on social media, you would think that they were these, super confident, super,
Mm,
but they do have their moments where they're not as confident in person. So I'm like,
mm,
that's weird. I thought you were, So I think social media kind of has a way of warping your perception
yes.
and maybe your, you know, safety
Hmm.
in the sense
Hmm.
of anxiety. Where how you feel, and I think it's anxiety you know building, right? Like to get likes,
Oh,
to like
absolutely.
what
I mean, look
circles
about
are you in, who are you
but look
following,
at us, right? We're trying to build this podcast. I mean, it's not
right?
like we're anxious all the time,
No,
but we look at the numbers and the people looking at it, the analytics that you share. It doesn't necessarily get anxious, but it is something like we want something in the future to be better.
right.
And that's where a lot of anxiety comes from. Again, it's about the future. Wanting likes is that so I can be more popular with the persons in my social group. There's something you're projecting into the future about that. So yeah.
I think it's intent too. Like my intent is to help people, right?
Hmm.
To have fun, right? And if you
Hmm.
can, make some money. I don't think those are bad.
Well, the intent is the main thing.
Yeah, it's
The
help
intent,
people. To
right?
help people bring it out. I think mental health is important for Black and brown people to kind of
Hmm.
wrap their heads around,
Hmm.
literally and metaphorically.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely,
mean? So
absolutely.
I think you see more people like us putting it out there, and I know there's people out there now really driving it home,
Mm.
but now this is on the smaller level, and I
Mm.
feel like we
And it's
can.
our contribution, right?
Yes,
Our
absolutely.
contribution
Everybody
to
pushes the
wellness.
ball up the hill, or the rock, or the
Absolutely.
boulder.
Boulder Rock. Your head that looks like a boulder Edo Rock. Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
look who's talking!
I know, right? Because I
Shiny.
shaved. It's shiny.
Whew.
Bowling ball.
Right.
So don't. It's not
I
because
just
I'm. It's
agreed
not
with you.
because I'm
I
colored.
just
Okay,
agreed with you.
relax.
I just agreed
Okay,
with you.
so the final,
Cue
and
ball,
again, this.
eight ball.
But that's right. And the last one, and there's many forms of anxiety, and phobias come under that too. But the generalized anxiety disorder. So it's an exaggerated sense of worry and tension, even when there's little or nothing to provoke it. So I have a client who has generalized anxiety disorder. So a great example would be, during the pandemic, he wasn't working, he fell behind in his rent, and of course, that would be an appropriate situation to be anxious
Right.
about,
Of
right?
course.
Not paying the utility bills because of no income coming in.
Right.
So he eventually found a job and was able to apply for one of these city programs that will pay right back rent, and he got it, and he got his utilities paid.
Oh, awesome.
And then, but he became anxious about something else. So now he has a job, but now he feels, what if I lose my job? Then I'm going to be back into
That's the trauma, right? It's
what's
the
going on.
PTSD.
Exactly. But working with this person for 3 years, it's like there's no time that he's really relaxed, even when things are going well.
Mm.
So there's nothing to provoke this feeling of anxiety, but the anticipation that something could happen. And what's interesting about his story is because when he was younger, he experienced being the marshals coming and locking him out of the apartment because their parents didn't
Oh my
pay the
God,
rent,
that's
having to move multiple times. So from his youth, he had those experiences where folks lost their jobs, folks lost their apartment, where you finally would feel safe, and then another left thing out from out of left field would
would
hit him.
happen.
So it kind of set a tone for he's almost more comfortable in chaos.
Mm. Well, he's more conditioned than
He's
used to.
conditioned than the calm
Like,
place.
like it's like potheads. They got to get right, right? They got to get right. They wake up in the morning, smoke some weed. Like they get
I don't
right.
know anything about that.
Whatever.
I've read books. I've read it in books.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
I've
But
watched
it's
television.
like getting right. Like for a
No,
drug addict,
absolutely.
you're getting to your comfort zone or what you're used to. You know what I mean? At the moment.
No, but you're actually right. I mean, did about 16 years of just working specifically with addicts, and so when you have withdrawal, that's not generalized anxiety. That's panic, but also your body is literally withdrawing from a medication, so it's creating chaos in your body. So it doesn't kind of fall into this because that's a whole nother thing around addiction. But generalized anxiety disorder is just feeling anxious more times than not. Doesn't mean you can't go to work, doesn't mean you can't function. But some generalized anxiety can be so intense you cannot function.
Right. Right. It's
You know what I mean?
paralyzing.
It's
It becomes
paralyzing.
physically debilitating to
Mm-hmm.
like go to a party. Like I know someone that I'm related to. We recently went to a party,
Hmm.
and music's very loud. People jumping around. It was just sensory overload.
Hmm.
The anxiety was building. I could see it, and then they literally ran out the place to
Hmm.
a quieter place to collect themselves. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know the particulars of what triggered that reaction, but I know that I knew it was coming because I've been there before with that
Hmm.
person
Hmm.
and I've seen that happen before. So I was like, oh, it's just a matter of time. And boom, it popped and it happened and they running out the room. And that was just,
So it was good that you were there for them.
yeah. And then
Hmm.
I went out and was able to kind of comfort them, be like, hey, let's just chill and,
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
whatever. And then we'll go back, a
Hmm.
little later.
And
And
it's interesting because I had a. I'm sorry.
no, that was it.
Another client I had actually when I was working in addiction. This person was in recovery, so there was no substance use, but they got very panicked when there was a lot of people around her. And I remember one time the panic happened so intensely. She said, "I got to talk to Steven. I can only talk to Steven." And different staff members were trying to calm her, and she specifically wanted me to intervene. And so I went. She was on the floor. She couldn't even get up. I sat on the floor next to her, got to her same eye level, and just kind of coached her into breathing,
Mm,
coached her into kind of get grounded in the present, because that's one of the things that when you're having anxiety, you kind of lose focus on what's happening right now,
right.
is what's going to happen. So those are some examples of various forms of anxiety. And if somebody says they're feeling anxious, believe them.
Mm.
It may
Take a
not.
minute and,
Yeah.
let them kind of sort
You
themselves
know,
out.
you know what I didn't do is set the tools that sometimes if you feel anxious, what are some things you could do
Well,
to kind of
I
help
was
reduce? You
gonna
gonna do
kind of
that?
yeah, I was just gonna
Perfect.
gonna touch on some of that. Like, so my whole thing is like, okay,
No wonder you're anxious. You're doing all this preparation for this. Two thumbs up.
well, I got to,
Yeah,
I'm working
bro.
with a professional here,
Yeah, bro. Yeah, you gotta
so
keep up with it with
I
a
got to keep up,
professional.
absolutely. So like my whole thing is like, all right, so what can we do to make things better,
Awesome.
right? And a lot of things, and as I was doing the research, I came across a lot of counter things. Like for instance, a lot of I found was able to find a lot of mental health stuff that kind of you know mental wellness practices and techniques.
Mm.
But I was starting to realize just by what I was seeing, that it's also a physical. There's a actual physical response your body has to anxiety. So that kind of predates human language. Like it's just literally your body's reacting. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't talk that your body
Mm-hmm.
down. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And I came across like a really, really interesting YouTube channel, Suki Baxter, Whole Body Revolution, where
Mm.
she goes through physical exercises you can do to reduce anxiety. Now she touched again, like I mentioned before, the vagus nerve, which is a cranial nerve that runs from both sides of your brain all the way down to your heart, to your lungs, to your stomach, to get your body going, the fight or flight reaction, right? So she goes through a list of like exercises that can calm, that vagus nerve physically to calm yourself down.
And what are some of those things?
Well, would you
Yeah,
like
like
me?
get to it. Can you get to it?
Would you like me to massage your vagus nerve?
No, thank you. That sounds so inappropriate, whatever
What are
that
you
is.
talking about? It's
I
not
don't
inappropriate at all.
care.
Like, what are you
If
talking
I
about?
need to get a massage, there are various facilities that are legal that I could go to. But please go on. I'm sure you're making a point.
Right. Well, the
Can
point.
you get to it?
I'm trying.
Okay.
If you let me.
Go ahead, bro.
So there are actual physical exercises that you can do, and Suki Baxter goes through a whole litany of exercises, simple things like some of the exercises, since the nerves are on both sides of your cranial and go down throughout your body. There's different massages you can do for your ears down to your neck, right, and different stretches that she goes through. That really
do you want to demonstrate a
no,
stretch?
I absolutely do not want to demonstrate. So we'd have to change the camera, put it on the floor, all that kind of stuff. But
and you'd have to move like
I'll move.
You know,
he
can't move from there.
Do you see now that I'll be out of camera?
You see this?
So anyway,
go ahead.
See, I don't do this to you. So these are things that can help reduce the anxiety, physical things. So her name is Suki Baxter, and I'll definitely put it in the comments, or this, rather, I'll put it in the description so you guys can kind of take a look. She seems super helpful. I've actually done this with someone I know, and they said it helps. So,
acupuncture is also good for managing anxiety. Also, exercise is another way to kind of get that energy out. Deep breathing. Sometimes just do what they call diaphragmatic breathing, where you breathe in for 10 seconds, breathe out, 5, maybe breathe in for 5, go out down for 5, and then maybe for 10 seconds. 10 repetitions, and that usually is a way of interrupting the anxiety response. And of course, another way is actually talk about what you're going through.
Also, I was in my research, I also saw that when you're in the midst of anxiety or a panic attack, you're almost like in this fog. You're almost watching the world happen kind of to you. So you're in this fog. So a thing that I saw multiple times suggested online was restarting your senses. For instance, restarting your touch senses, like touch something different. Take the time out to touch something, and get closer. Take time to smell something. If you can, take time to taste something. Visually, try to do, like, for instance, go in, even just in your mind. Like, for instance, if there was something you like to cook and you know the ingredients, go through them step by step and try to reset all your senses to kind of address the moment that you're in. So these were all very interesting things. These are things that
you wouldn't really think of, right?
No, I wouldn't say, okay, I need to reset.
Right.
What do you mean reset? Like reset my senses, and that's huge. And it's like the physical aspect of anxiety is real. So, and I think they need to be addressed. And I don't think we address that part of it. We're always talking mental health, and there is a huge component of mental health when it comes to anxiety, but it doesn't address the whole problem. Like we said, interoception is a real thing where your body now tells your mind how to respond.
Well, let me kind of modify what you just said, because part of as a mental health professional, we also know, we're trained that it is a physical response. It's like a part of the, if you think of a pie and think of different slices of the pie, one of them is to address the physical symptoms, right, and physical body reactions, and how you can refocus your body. So here's two more techniques for reducing anxiety. Is actually holding a cube of ice. If you hold a cube of ice, your mind is focused on the coldness in your hand, and that's another way to kind of bring your anxiety down.
reset your
also
senses.
exactly, which is all in tandem to what you just said.
Right.
And so another technique is also if you have a rubber band on your wrist and you begin to feel anxious, snap it because it causes your senses to go to that feeling. And you can snap it multiple times if you're feeling anxious. So these are also ways to bring your mind back to your body and refocus
Almost into
yourself.
reality, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a
you're
great way of looking at it.
back to, seeing the world for what it is, and
Yeah.
not how you may be perceiving it in that very anxious moment.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely. Good stuff, though. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once again, I'll leave all that stuff in the comment section, so you guys can kind of take a look at it, and I think that's it.
Yeah, and again, if you're open to it, find a mental health professional if it's really affecting your life and your day-to-day functioning, like work or your relationship, or if you have children and raising the children, just taking care of yourself. If these things are really at that point, you really may need to consider speaking to a therapist. And sometimes there are anti-anxiety medications that sometimes people are prescribed. So not necessarily the first line of defense, but it's one thing that actually does work.
Definitely an option. Definitely an option.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening to Six Train Therapy. I'm DJ Mayday.
And I'm Professor S. No, we're not out yet. I'm selling
Uh-oh.
myself. It's okay. It's all good. Your psychotherapist in New York, Bronx, and Manhattan.
Do the whole subscribe thing.
Like, comment, and subscribe if
Yes.
you so choose. But we want you to do it.
And we also, I want to remind everybody that we have an email. So if you ever want to ask us a question, please feel free. It's sixtraintherapy@gmail.com.
Or if you have also, may I?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Or if you have a topic for us to talk about, please send your suggestions and also feedback. Because we always want to be better in how we're doing the content and our production and so on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Think we're done?
You tell me.
We're done.
We're done.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Six Train Therapy. Peace.
Jesus, take care.
All right.
How was that?
I thought that was good.
That's tight.
That's good. I don't know why he was coming for me, though.
That's what we do, bro.
He was coming for me.